Welcome to Zen Mind Temple. Tonight, I'm not just sharing stories. I'm handing you the keys to silence the noise that's been keeping you up. 10 Zen tales, each one a quiet revolution. Millions have let them dissolve their racing thoughts, melt away stress, and sink into sleep so deep it feels like coming home. What makes these different? They don't demand you empty your mind or be good at meditating. They work if you've never meditated a day in your life. If your thoughts are screaming right now. If every sleep trick you've tried has fizzled out, as the Buddha once said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. In the next 3 hours, let that truth settle. Adjust your pillow. Let your body grow heavy against the bed like it's been waiting to rest all day. Take a deep breath with me now, and as you exhale, know this is the first step of a journey that's been calling you, softly, all along. Let's begin. The evening light filters through the wooden lattice windows of the old temple, casting thin strips of gold across the polished stone floor. Outside, the air carries the faint scent of jasmine, mixed with the earthy aroma of wet soil from the afternoon rain. A single monk sits on the edge of the wooden veranda, his posture relaxed yet upright, hands resting gently on his knees. His eyes are half closed, not in sleep, but in that soft state of observation that comes with years of quiet practice. The courtyard before him is small, bordered by a low stone wall covered in ivy. In the center stands an ancient bamboo tree, its slender trunk rising straight toward the sky, then bending slightly under the weight of its own leaves, as if bowing in perpetual reverence. The branches sway slowly, almost imperceptibly, in the evening breeze. Below, the stone steps leading up to the veranda are smooth from decades of footsteps monks passing through, pilgrims pausing to catch their breath, raindrops falling and evaporating, seasons turning. For a long while, there is only silence. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but full-filled with the quiet sounds of the world continuing around him. A distant bird calling to its mate, the rustle of a small creature in the undergrowth, the soft creak of the temple's wooden beams as they settle into the cool evening air. The monk's breath matches the rhythm of these sounds, slow and steady, like the ebb and flow of a distant tide. Then, as the breeze picks up ever so slightly, the bamboo leaves stir, not with suddenness, but with a gradual awakening, as if the wind is a gentle hand brushing across their surface. The longer, thinner leaves at the ends of the branches begin to move first, their tips tracing delicate arcs against the pale blue of the evening sky. As the wind continues, more leaves join in, creating a soft, rustling melody that blends with the other sounds of the courtyard. And as the leaves move, their shadows move too. They stretch across the stone steps below, long and thin, like the fingers of some unseen being. With each sway of the bamboo, the shadows dance, now stretching forward, now pulling back, now overlapping, now separating. They slide across the rough surface of the stones, caressing the cracks between them, lingering for a moment in the hollows where rainwater has collected, then moving on. The monk watches this dance in silence. His gaze is not fixed, not focused, intently on any one shadow, but soft and wide, taking in the entire scene as a single unfolding moment. His eyes follow the shadows as they sweep across the steps, but there is no sense of hurry in his observation. He is not waiting for them to do something, not expecting them to reach a certain point or form a certain shape. He is simply watching, as one might watch a river flow or a cloud drift across the sky. After some time, whether minutes or hours, it's hard to say in this place, where time seems to soften and stretch, the breeze dies down. The bamboo leaves settle back into stillness, their edges glistening with leftover raindrops that catch the last of the sunlight. And as the leaves still, their shadows still too. They lie across the stone steps, motionless now, as if frozen in place, The monk remains seated, his posture unchanged. His breath continues its slow, steady rhythm. But something in him has shifted, imperceptibly, like the turning of a leaf in the wind. It is not a dramatic shift, not a sudden realization that jolts him from his reverie, but a soft, quiet understanding that settles over him like mist over a lake. He thinks back to the morning, when his mind had been anything but still. Thoughts had raced through his head like a herd of wild horses, worries about the upcoming ceremony, memories of a conversation from the day before that had left him feeling unsettled, plans for the tasks he needed to complete before nightfall. He had tried to meditate, to quiet the storm, but each time he focused on his breath, another thought would intrude, like a stone thrown into a calm pond, sending ripples through his concentration. He had felt frustrated then, even a little ashamed. Here he was, a monk who had spent years practicing the art of stillness, and yet his mind refused to be tamed. It was as if his thoughts had a life of their own, swirling and eddying without any regard for his efforts to calm them. He had walked into the courtyard seeking escape, seeking some external peace to match the peace he was struggling to find within. And now, watching the bamboo shadows, he sees it clearly. The steps themselves never moved. They remained solid, grounded, rooted in the earth, even as the shadows danced across them. The wind came and went, the leaves swayed, the shadows shifted, but the steps were unchanged. They did not resist the shadows, did not try to chase them away or hold on to them as they passed. They simply allowed them to come and go, remaining themselves throughout. It is the same with the mind, he realizes. The thoughts that race through our heads are like those shadows. They come, they go, they shift and change. They are not solid, not permanent, not a part of who we are. What is solid, what is unchanging, is the awareness that watches them, the part of us that is like the stone steps, quiet and rooted, beneath the constant movement. The problem arises not when thoughts appear, but when we mistake them for something more than they are. When we cling to the pleasant ones, trying to hold on to them as they slip away, or push away the unpleasant ones, struggling against them as they arise. We become like someone trying to stop the bamboo from swaying, or to catch the shadows as they move, exerting endless energy in a task that is ultimately futile. The monk smiles to himself, a soft, almost imperceptible curve of the lips. He thinks of all the times he has fought against his own thoughts, as if doing so would somehow make him more peaceful. He sees now that peace is not the absence of thoughts, any more than a clear sky is the absence of clouds. Peace is the ability to watch the clouds pass by without being carried away with them. He takes a slow, deep breath, feeling the air fill his lungs, then release it, letting go of any remaining tension in his shoulders. As he does, he notices that his mind is quieted, not because he forced it to, but because he stopped struggling against it. The thoughts are still there, like leaves floating on the surface of a calm lake, but they no longer disturb the water beneath. The evening deepens around him. The sky shifts from pale blue to soft indigo, and the first stars begin to twinkle in the distance. A nightingale starts to sing, its melody clear and sweet, weaving through the silence. The bamboo stands motionless now, its shadows long and still, stretching across the steps like a benediction. The monk remains seated, but his awareness has expanded. He feels the coolness of the evening air on his skin, the rough texture of the wooden veranda beneath him, the faint ache in his knees from sitting so long, and none of these sensations disturb him. They are simply part of the moment, like the rustle of the leaves or the song of the bird. They come, they are acknowledged, they pass. He thinks of the other monks in the temple, each with their own struggles, their own racing thoughts, their own efforts to find stillness. He wonders how many of them are fighting against their shadows instead of simply watching them dance. He thinks of the villagers who visit the temple, seeking solace from their busy lives, carrying their worries like heavy burdens. Would they understand, he wonders, that the peace they seek is not somewhere outside themselves, but in the quiet center that remains even as their thoughts swirl around it? The moon rises, casting a silvery glow over the courtyard. The bamboo's shadow has shifted again, now stretching across the far corner of the yard, but the steps themselves are still bathed in moonlight. The monk closes his eyes, but the image remains clear in his mind, the dance of light and shadow. The unchanging stone beneath Dot, he thinks of the teachings he has studied over the years, the words of the ancient masters, the sutras that line the shelves of the temple library. So many words, so many explanations, and yet the truth is as simple as what he has seen this evening. The world is full of movement, of change, of shifting shadows, and beneath it all, there is a stillness that remains if we only learn to rest. In it, when he finally stands, his movements are slow, deliberate, as if he is reluctant to disturb the peace that is settled around him. He walks across the veranda, his bare feet making soft sounds against the wood, and pauses at the edge of the steps. He looks down at the stone beneath him, at the faint traces of the bamboo's shadow that still linger, and smiles again. Tomorrow, his mind will likely race again. Thoughts will come unbidden, worries will arise, the storm will return. But now, he knows that he doesn't have to fight it. He can simply watch the storm pass, like watching clouds cross the sun, trusting that the light will return. He can be like the stone steps, unshaken by the shadows that dance across him. He turns and walks back toward the temple, his steps light, his heart calm. The nightingale's song follows him, and somewhere in the distance, a bell rings, its sound, deep and resonant, echoing through the quiet evening. As he disappears into the darkness of the temple doorway, the bamboo stands silent in the moonlight, its leaves still, its shadow long and peaceful across the stone steps that have seen so much and remain so unchanged. The first light of dawn seeps over the eastern mountains, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and lavender. Inside the temple kitchen, a thin wisp of smoke curls upward from the stone stove, carrying the rich, earthy scent of brewing tea. Air is cool, with the last traces of night's chill clinging to the earthen walls. But there is a warmth here, too, the warmth of wood and stone that have held the heat of countless fires, the warmth of quiet purpose in the early morning hours. Young monk enters silently, his sandals making barely a sound against the packed dirt floor. He is carrying a small wooden tray, upon which rests a single clay teacup, its surface smooth and unadorned, the color of dried earth. His steps are hesitant, as if he is unsure whether he should be here, but his eyes are bright with a quiet determination. He pauses at the entrance, watching the older monk who stands by the stove, stirring a large iron pot with a wooden spoon. The older monk turns, as if sensing his presence without needing to see. His face is lined with the gentle marks of time, but his eyes are clear and calm, like a mountain lake reflecting the sky. He nods slightly, a silent invitation to enter, then returns his attention to the pot, the spoon moving in slow, deliberate circles, as if the act of stirring tea is itself a form of meditation. The young monk steps forward, placing the tray carefully on a low wooden table near the stove. He bows deeply, his hands pressed together in front of his chest, a gesture of respect and humility. When he speaks, his voice is soft, almost reverent, as if he is afraid to disturb the quiet of the morning. "Master," he says, "I have come to seek your guidance. For many months, I have studied the sutras, memorized their words, practiced the rituals, and yet I feel as if I am no closer to understanding the truth. My mind is filled with knowledge, but my heart remains empty. What am I doing wrong?" The older monk does not answer immediately. He lifts the spoon from the pot, letting the excess tea drip back into the iron cauldron, then sets it aside. He reaches for a small clay teapot, its shape rounded and comforting, and pours the hot tea into it, the liquid making a soft, soothing sound as it fills the vessel. He replaces the lid gently, then turns to face the young monk, his expression kind but serious. "Sit," he says, gesturing to a low stool beside the table. The young monk obeys, folding his legs neatly beneath him, his back straight, hands resting on his thighs. He waits, his breath held slightly, as if afraid to miss a single word of wisdom. The older monk picks up the teapot and the young monk's empty cup. He begins to pour the tea into the cup, the amber liquid flowing smoothly, filling the small vessel. It is nearly full, but he does not stop. He continues to pour, the tea spilling over the edges of the cup, running down its sides, dripping onto the wooden tray, and pooling on the table beneath Dot. The young monk watches, his brow furrowed, in confusion. At first, he says nothing, assuming that the master must have a reason for his actions. But as the tea continues to spill, as the puddle on the table grows larger, he can no longer contain his concern. "Master," he exclaims, reaching forward as if to stop the flow. The cup is full. The tea is spilling everywhere. It can hold no more. The older monk stops pouring. He sets the teapot down gently on the table, then meets the young monk's eyes, his gaze steady and penetrating. "Indeed," he says softly, "and so it is with your mind, my friend. You come to me seeking wisdom, but your cup is already full of your own ideas, your own knowledge, your own beliefs. How can I pour anything new into it when there is no room?" The young monk stares at him, his mouth slightly open as the words settle over him. For a moment, he says nothing, his mind racing to comprehend the meaning behind the master's words. He thinks of all the hours he has spent studying, memorizing, analyzing, filling his mind with facts and figures, arguments and counter-arguments, theories and interpretations. He has prided himself on his knowledge, on his ability to recall passages from the sutras, to debate the finer points of doctrine with the other monks. He had thought that this knowledge would lead him to enlightenment, that the more he knew, the closer he would be to understanding Dot. But now, as he looks at the overflowing cup, he begins to see. His mind is like that cup so full of what he already knows that there is no space for anything new. He has been so busy clinging to his own ideas, his own understanding, that he has closed himself off to the possibility of learning something different, something deeper. He has been collecting knowledge like a squirrel collects nuts, hoarding it away, afraid to let go of any of it. And in doing so, he has prevented himself from truly understanding. The older monk picks up a cloth and begins to wipe up the spilled tea, his movements slow and deliberate. He does not speak, giving the young monk time to absorb his words, to let the truth of them sink in. The morning light grows brighter, streaming through the small window above the stove, casting a warm glow over the scene, illuminating the dust motes that dance in the air. I never thought of it that way," the young monk says finally, his voice quiet, humbled. "I thought that by filling my mind with knowledge, I was preparing myself for enlightenment. But perhaps I have been doing the opposite." The older monk nods, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He folds the cloth neatly and sets it aside, then picks up the teacup, emptying the remaining tea into a small basin near the stove. He rinses the cup with cool water, then sets it back on the tray, now clean and empty. "Knowledge is not wisdom," he says. "It can point the way, but it is not the path itself. Imagine a map. It can show you where the mountain is, but it cannot take you to the summit. To climb the mountain, you must put down the map and take a step forward." He picks up the teapot again and pours a small amount of tea into the empty cup, just enough to fill it halfway. He sets the teapot down and pushes the cup toward the young monk. "Drink," He says. The young monk picks up the cup, feeling the warmth of the clay against his palms. He brings it to his lips, sipping the tea slowly, savoring its rich, slightly bitter flavor, the way it warms him from the inside out. As he drinks, he feels a sense of lightness, as if a heavy burden has been lifted from his shoulders. For many years, the older monk continues, his voice soft, almost conversational, I too filled my mind with knowledge. I memorized every sutra, studied every commentary, debated with scholars from far and wide. I thought that if I could understand all the teachings, I would find enlightenment. But the more I learned, the more confused I became. It was as if I was trying to catch the wind in a net. No matter how hard I tried, it slipped through my fingers. He pauses, pouring himself a cup of tea, his eyes distant as if he is recalling a long-ago memory. Then, one day, during a storm, I took shelter in a small hut at the foot of the mountain. The old woman who lived there had never read a single sutra, had never heard of the teachings we hold so dear. But when she spoke, there was a wisdom in her words that I had never found in all my books. She talked about the way the river bends to avoid the rocks, about how the trees let go of their leaves in autumn without regret, about how the earth waits patiently for spring. And in that moment, I realized that I had been looking for truth in the wrong places. I had been so busy collecting words that I had forgotten to look at the world itself. The young monk listens, his mind quiet now, no longer racing with questions or objections. He thinks of the sutras he has spent so long memorizing, the complex ideas he has struggled to understand. He realizes that he has been treating them as ends in themselves, rather than as pointers to something greater, something that cannot be contained in words, something that must be experienced directly. It is not that knowledge is bad, the older monk says, as if sensing his thoughts. It is like a raft. It can carry you across the river, but once you reach the other side, you do not carry it on your back. You leave it behind so that others may use it. But if you cling to it, if you refuse to let it go, it becomes a burden, weighing you down, preventing you from moving forward. He pours a little more tea into the young monk's cup, filling it just a bit more, but not to the brim. To learn, you must first unlearn. To receive, you must first empty your hands. This is the way of the mind as well. If you wish to understand the truth, you must let go of what you think you know. You must approach each moment with the freshness of a child, seeing things as they are, not as you expect them to be. The young monk nods slowly, a sense of clarity beginning to dawn within him. He thinks of all the times he has listened to the master's teachings, not with an open mind, but with a checklist of his own ideas, comparing each word to what he already believes, accepting what fits, rejecting what does not. He has been like a man wearing colored glasses, seeing the world not as it is, but through the filter of his own preconceptions. I see now, he says, his voice filled with gratitude. I have been trying to hold on to so much that there is no room for anything new. My mind is like a cluttered room so full of things that I cannot see the floor beneath them. The older monk smiles, a warm, genuine smile that crinkles the corners of his eyes. Then it is time to begin cleaning, he says, not by force, not by struggle, but by letting go. One thought at a time, one idea at a time, one belief at a time, let them go, as you would let go of a leaf floating downstream. Do not cling to them, do not push them away. Simply watch them as they pass, and return to the empty space beneath. He pours the last of the tea into his own cup, then sets the teapot down, empty now. The morning sun is higher in the sky, streaming through the window, warming the room, chasing away the last of the night's chill. Outside, a rooster crows, its call clear and sharp, marking the beginning of the day. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rings, calling the other monks to morning prayers. The young monk stands, bowing deeply again, this time with a sense of lightness, of openness that he has not felt in months. "Thank you, Master," he says. "Your wisdom has opened my eyes. I will try to empty my cup, to approach each moment with a mind that is open and receptive." The older monk nods, his smile gentle. "Remember," he says, "the cup is not empty because it lacks something, but because it is ready to receive. So it is with the mind. To be empty is not to be lacking, but to be prepared, to be open to whatever comes, without judgment, without expectation." The young monk picks up his tray, the empty cup resting upon it, and turns toward the door. As he leaves, he feels as if a weight has been lifted from his shoulders, as if the morning air itself is lighter, clearer than it was before. He thinks of the day ahead, of the teachings he will hear, the practices he will perform, and for the first time in a long while, he feels not the pressure to understand, to remember, to accumulate, but simply the quiet desire to be present, to listen, to receive. Inside the kitchen, the older monk sits alone, sipping his tea, watching the sunlight play across the table where the tea once spilled. He thinks of the young monk, of the journey he has begun, and smiles to himself. He knows that the path is long, that there will be moments when the young monk forgets, when he fills his cup again with his own ideas and struggles to let them go. But that is part of the process, part of the dance. For wisdom, he knows, is not a destination to be reached, but a way of being to approach each moment with an open heart, an empty cup, and a mind that is free to see the world as it is, unclouded by what we think it should be. And in that seeing, in that openness, lies the peace that so many seek, but so few find, because they are too busy filling their cups with everything but the truth that is right in front of them. The afternoon sky has been heavy all day, a thick blanket of gray clouds stretching from one horizon to the other, as if the heavens themselves are holding their breath. In the garden behind the small cottage at the edge of the village, a lay practitioner sits on a wooden bench beneath the overhang of the porch, watching the world wait for rain. His eyes rest on the stand of banana plants at the far end of the garden, their large, broad leaves unfurling like green flags, reaching toward the sky, their stems thick and sturdy, anchored deeply in the rich soil. The air is thick with humidity, the kind that clings to the skin like a gentle embrace, making each breath feel soft and heavy. The leaves of the banana plants are still, as if holding their own breath, waiting. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks, its sound muffled by the weight of the air. A butterfly, its wings a vibrant orange, flutters past, seeking shelter from the coming storm. The lay practitioner's breath is slow, matching the rhythm of this waiting world, his hands resting loosely on his knees, his posture relaxed but attentive. He has come to this garden every afternoon for years, ever since he retired from his work as a scribe in the village. There is something about the presence of these banana plants that draws him here, a quality of quiet strength, of patient resilience that he has always admired but never fully understood. He has watched them grow from small shoots to tall, leafy plants, has seen them bear fruit and shed their leaves, has observed how they bend in the wind but never break. Today, though, he feels a particular restlessness, a quiet unease that he cannot quite name. It lingers in the back of his mind like a half-remembered dream, a sense that something is about to change, something he is not quite ready for. And then it begins. Not with a sudden crash, but with a single drop plop striking one of the large banana leaves, sending a tiny tremor through its surface. For a moment, there is silence, as if the world is registering this first drop. Then another and another, each one making a soft, wet sound as it hits the leaves, the ground, the roof of the cottage. The drops come faster now, no longer isolated. Events but a steady rhythm plip, plop, plip, plop building like a drumbeat in the quiet afternoon. The lay practitioner leans forward slightly, his eyes fixed on the banana plants. As the rain intensifies, the drops grow larger, heavier, striking the leaves with more force. At first, the leaves resist, their broad surfaces trying to remain flat, to hold their shape against the onslaught. But as the rain falls harder, as the drops come in a steady, unrelenting stream, something shifts. The leaves begin to bend, their edges curling slightly, their centers dipping downward, creating small bowls that catch the rain. Instead of fighting against the water, they yield to it, accepting its weight, finding a new shape that works with, rather than against, the storm. A particularly large drop hits the largest leaf, causing it to bow deeply, almost touching the ground. For a moment, it seems as if it will snap, as if the weight is too much to bear. But then, as the water collects in its curved surface, the leaf begins to gently shake, a slow, undulating movement that sends a stream of water cascading down to the soil below. Once the weight is lightened, the leaf slowly, almost imperceptibly, rises again, returning to its original position, ready to receive more rain. The lay practitioner watches this dance with fascination. He has seen rain fall on these plants countless times before, but today, something about it feels different. Today, he is seeing more than just leaves and water. He is seeing a kind of wisdom, a way of being in the world that he has struggled to grasp in his own life. He thinks of the arguments he has had with his neighbor, the way he has clung to his own opinions, refusing to budge, even when it cost tension and strife. He thinks of the plans he had made for his daughter's wedding, how he had insisted on doing things a certain way, how upset he had been when the weather had ruined his arrangements, when circumstances had forced him to change course. He thinks of the anger he had felt when his employer had passed him over for a promotion, the resentment that had festered in his heart, the way he had fought against the decision, instead of accepting it and moving forward. In all these moments, he realizes he has been like the banana leaf before the rain, stubborn, rigid, refusing to bend. He has thought that strength meant resistance, that virtue lay in holding his ground, no matter what. But watching the banana plant now, he sees a different kind of strength, a strength that comes not from resistance, but from flexibility, from the willingness to yield, to adapt, to find a way to work with what is, rather than what he wishes were. The rain falls harder now, a steady downpour that drowns out all other sounds. The banana plants sway gently in the wind that has picked up, their leaves bending and bowing, but never breaking. Each time a gust blows, they lean into it, their stems bending at the joints, their leaves angling themselves to catch the wind rather than fight against it. And when the wind dies down, they stand tall again, as if nothing had happened. It is not weakness, the lay practitioner realizes, to bend. It is wisdom. The tree that refuses to bend in the storm is the one that is most likely to snap. The river that refuses to go around the rock is the one that dries up. Life is full of rains and winds, of obstacles and unexpected changes. To resist them is to waste energy, to create suffering for oneself and others. To yield, to adapt, to find a way to flow with them, that is where true strength lies. He thinks of the teachings he has read in the sutras, the words of the masters, who spoke of non-resistance, of going with the flow of life. He has always understood these teachings intellectually, but today, watching the banana leaves, he feels them in his bones. He understands now that it is not about giving up, about letting life push you around without a fight. It is about discerning the difference between what can be changed and what cannot, between what is within your control and what is not. It is about saving your strength for the battles that matter and letting go of the rest. The rain begins to ease, the drops becoming less frequent, the intensity diminishing. The banana leaves, now glistening with water, stand a little taller, their edges no longer curled, their surfaces catching the faint light that is beginning to break through the clouds. The air smells fresh and clean, the earthy scent of wet soil mingling with the sweet aroma of the jasmine that grows near the porch. A spider whose web has been destroyed by the rain begins to rebuild, its movements slow and deliberate, as if it has all the time in the world. The lay practitioner watches it work, marveling at its patience, its acceptance of what has happened. It does not waste time lamenting the loss of its web. It simply begins again, adapting to the new conditions, spinning a new web in a slightly different location, one that might better withstand any future rain's dot. Is this not, he wonders, the way we should live? Not clinging to what was, not mourning the loss of our plans, but accepting what is and making the best of it. Not fighting against the rain, but letting it water our roots, letting it cleanse us, letting it teach us to be flexible and resilient. He thinks of his daughter, how she had laughed when the rain had ruined their outdoor wedding plans, how she had suggested moving the ceremony indoors, how the intimacy of the small space had made the day even more special than he had imagined. He had been so caught up in his disappointment that he had almost missed the beauty of what was happening right in front of him. He had been so busy fighting against the rain that he had forgotten to dance in it. The sun begins to peek through the clouds, casting a golden light over the garden. The rain stops completely, leaving behind a world that feels new and refreshed. The banana leaves glisten in the sunlight, each drop of water acting like a tiny prism, casting rainbow colors onto the soil below. A bird begins to sing its melody, cheerful and clear, as if celebrating the end of the storm. The lay practitioner stands slowly, stretching his legs, feeling a sense of lightness in his body that he has not felt in a long time. He walks across the garden, his bare feet sinking slightly into the soft, wet soil, and stops in front of the banana plants. He reaches out gently, touching one of the large leaves, feeling its smooth surface, its veins strong and resilient beneath his fingertips. He thinks of the days ahead, of the challenges that will inevitably come: illness, loss, disappointment, change. But instead of feeling anxious at the thought, he feels a sense of calm. He knows now that he does not have to face these challenges with rigidity and resistance. He can meet them with the same flexibility, the same willingness to adapt that he has seen in these banana plants. He can bend without breaking, yield without giving up, flow without losing his way. As he turns to walk back to the cottage, he smiles to himself, a deep, genuine smile that comes from a place of understanding, of acceptance. He knows that old habits are hard to break, that there will be moments when he forgets this lesson, when he finds himself resisting the rain instead of flowing with it. But that is okay. Life is a practice. After all, a daily, moment-by-moment practice of remembering to let go, to yield, to trust in the natural rhythm of things. The banana plants stand quietly in the afternoon sun, their leaves still and serene, as if they have always known this wisdom, as if it is written in their very fibers. They do not need to be taught to bend in the wind, to yield to the rain. It is simply their nature. And perhaps the lay practitioner thinks, it is our nature too, if only we can remember to let go of our need to control, to resist, to fight. Against the inevitable. In the end, he realizes, life is not about avoiding the storms. It is about learning to dance in the rain, to bend with the wind, to find strength in flexibility and peace in acceptance. It is about understanding that sometimes the path forward is not straight and rigid, but curved and flowing. It is about trusting that, like the banana leaf, we have within us the wisdom to yield, to adapt, to survive and even thrive in the face of whatever life brings. And as he steps back onto the porch, leaving the garden behind, he carries this wisdom with him like a quiet song in his heart, reminder of the beauty and strength that come from learning to go with the flow. The morning mist clings to the stone walls of the temple courtyard, softening the edges of the ancient buildings, turning the world into a watercolor painting where nothing is quite sharp, nothing is quite defined. A young disciple kneels on a patch of worn grass near the eastern wall, his posture hunched, his hands moving in a steady, repetitive motion. In front of him, a small stone mortar sits on a flat slab of rock, and in his hands, a rough brick, which he is grinding against. The mortar with slow, determined strokes. The sound of the grinding fills the quiet morning, a low, gritty rasp that echoes faintly against the temple walls, mixing with the soft drip of water from the roof, the distant chirp of a waking bird. The disciple's brow is furrowed with concentration, his breath coming in short, focused bursts. His sleeves are rolled up, revealing forearms already streaked with dust and small cuts from the rough stone. There is a sense of urgency in his movements, a quiet desperation that belies the calm of the morning. He has been at this for days now. Ever since he heard the old monks talking in the dining hall about a master who had supposedly achieved enlightenment by staring into a mirror for 3 years, studying his own reflection until he saw beyond the surface, beyond the illusion of self. The story had sparked something in him, a desire to find his own path to enlightenment, to shortcut the years of meditation and study that lay ahead. If a mirror could lead to enlightenment, he had thought, then surely a perfect mirror won. He made himself would be even more powerful. And so he had set to work, determined to grind this brick into a smooth, shiny surface that would reflect the world back to him with perfect clarity. The mist begins to lift as the sun climbs higher in the sky, its weak rays piercing through the clouds, casting a pale gold light over the courtyard. A slight breeze stirs, carrying the scent of sandalwood from the main hall where the morning service is about to begin. The disciple does not notice. His entire being is focused on the brick in his hands, on the slow, laborious process of wearing it down, of transforming something rough and ordinary into something smooth and perfect. He thinks of the other disciples, who are even now gathering in the hall to chant, to meditate, to listen to the Master's teachings. He feels a twinge of guilt, but pushes it aside. They are following the slow path, he tells himself, the path of patience and repetition. But he is different. He is seeking a shortcut, a way to skip ahead, to reach enlightenment faster, more efficiently. Why spend years sitting in meditation when he could create something that would show him the truth directly? His hands begin to ache, his shoulders to burn with fatigue, but he ignores the discomfort. This is the price of progress, he thinks. This is the sacrifice required to achieve something great. He imagines the moment when the brick is finally smooth, when he holds it up and sees not just his own reflection, but the true nature of reality staring back at him. He imagines the look on the other disciples' faces, the pride in the Master's eyes. He imagines the peace, the clarity, the freedom that will come with enlightenment. And so he grinds on, his movements becoming almost mechanical, his mind lost in dreams of the future. A shadow falls across the mortar, and the disciple looks up, startled. The Master stands before him, his posture calm and upright, his face hidden in the shadow of his hood. The disciple hurries to his feet, bowing deeply, his hands still clutching the brick and mortar, dust covering his fingers. His robes. "Master," he says, his voice breathless, a mixture of guilt and pride in his tone. "I am sorry, I missed the morning service. I have been working on something." The Master says nothing for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the gnaw. Brick on the dust, on the small pile of grit that has accumulated in the mortar. Then he speaks, his voice soft, almost gentle, but with a depth that makes the disciple feel as if he is being seen, truly seen for the first time. "What are you doing?" The Master asks. The disciple straightens, a flicker of excitement in his eyes. I am grinding this brick into a mirror, Master. I heard the story of the monk who achieved enlightenment by staring into a mirror, and I thought if I make a mirror myself with my own hands, perhaps it will help me see the truth more clearly. Perhaps it will lead me to enlightenment faster. The Master's gaze remained steady, his expression unreadable. And how long have you been doing this? 3 days, Master, the disciple replies, a note of pride in his voice. And I will continue until it is done, no matter how long it takes. I am committed to this path. The Master nods slowly, then turns his attention to the nearby woodpile, where a few logs sit waiting to be split. He picks up an axe, testing its weight in his hands, and looks back at the disciple. Tell me, he says, if I spend all day chopping wood with this axe, do you think I will turn it into a plow? The disciple blinks, confused by the question. No, Master. An axe is for chopping wood. A plow is for tilling the soil. You cannot turn an axe into a plow, no matter how much you chop. Then why, the Master asks, setting the axe down, and turning back to the disciple, do you think you can turn a brick into a mirror, no matter how much you grind it? The disciple opens his mouth to reply, then stops, the words catching in his throat. For a moment, he is confused, unable to see the connection. Then, slowly, the meaning begins to dawn on him. A brick is a brick, no matter how much you grind it, how much you smooth its surface. It will never be a mirror. Its nature is to be a brick, to be part of a wall, to hold up a roof, to be solid and sturdy. To try to make it into something else, something it is not, is a fool's errand. It is a waste of time, of energy, of effort. But then he realizes with a sinking feeling, is that not what he has been doing with his life? Trying to force himself into a mold that does not fit, chasing a path that is not his own, believing that enlightenment is something to be achieved through effort, through struggle, through forcing something to be what it is not. He has been so focused on the future, on the end goal, that he has forgotten to live in the present, to embrace the path he is on, rather than constantly looking for a shortcut. The Master watches the disciple's face, seeing the realization dawn in his eyes. He does not speak, giving the young man time to process the truth of his words. The morning sun climbs higher, burning off the last of the mist, flooding the courtyard with light. A butterfly flutters past, its wings a vibrant blue, and for a moment, the disciple's attention is drawn to it, a brief, beautiful distraction from his troubled thoughts. I never thought of it that way, the disciple says finally, his voice quiet, humbled. I thought that if I worked hard enough, if I tried long enough, I could make anything into what I wanted it to be. I thought enlightenment was something to be achieved through effort, through struggle. The Master smiles softly, a gentle curve of his lips that seems to carry the weight of years of wisdom. Effort is not bad, my friend, but it must be directed wisely. A farmer does not plant seeds in the winter and expect them to grow. A musician does not practice for an hour and expect to master an instrument. Enlightenment is not a destination to be reached by force, but a state of being to be cultivated, moment by moment, through presence, through awareness, through living fully in each breath. He gestures to the brick in the disciple's hand. This brick has its own purpose, its own nature. To try to make it into something else is to disrespect that nature, to waste its potential. So it is with you. You have your own path, your own nature. To try to force yourself onto someone else's path, to chase someone else's idea of enlightenment, is to waste your own potential. The disciple looks down at the brick, feeling its weight in his hand, its rough surface against his skin. He thinks of the hours he has spent grinding it, the energy he has wasted, the opportunities he has missed, opportunities to meditate, to listen, to learn, to be present with his fellow disciples. He has been so busy chasing a future that may never come that he has forgotten to live in the present, to appreciate the small, sacred moments that make up a life. What should I do then? He asks, his voice filled with a mixture of confusion and hope. How do I find my path? How do I stop wasting my time? The master gestures to the courtyard around them, to the stone walls, the woodpile, the small garden where a few vegetables grow. Look around you. This is your path. The work of the temple, the practice of meditation, the company of your fellow seekers. These are the things that will lead you to enlightenment, not some imaginary shortcut. Enlightenment is not in the future, but in this moment, in the breath you are taking right now, in the sound of the wind in the trees, in the simple act of being alive. He pauses, then adds, put down the brick, my friend. Stop trying to grind it into something it is not. Instead, use it for what it is meant to be. Build with it. Create with it. Or let it be, and turn your attention to the work that is in front of you, the work that is yours to do. The disciple looks at the brick for a long moment, then slowly sets it down on the mortar. As he releases it, he feels a sense of lightness in his hands, as if a heavy burden has been lifted. He brushes the dust from his fingers, the gritty sensation a reminder of his foolishness, but also of his awakening. I understand now, he says, bowing deeply to the master. I have been chasing shadows, wasting my energy on something that can never be. I have been so focused on the destination that I forgot to walk the path. The master nods, his smile warm. The path is not always easy. There will be moments when you grow tired, when you doubt, when you are tempted to look for shortcuts. But remember this, the journey is the destination. Each step, each breath, each moment of presence, this is enlightenment. Not something to be achieved in the future, but something to be lived right now. The disciple stands, straightening his robes, feeling a sense of clarity he has not felt in a long time. He looks around the courtyard, really sees it for the first time, the way the sunlight plays across the stone, the way the breeze stirs the leaves of the small maple tree, the way the other disciples are beginning to emerge from the main hall. Their faces calm and serene after the morning service. He realizes that he has been part of this world all along, but he has not been present for it, has not seen it, has not appreciated it. Thank you, Master, he says. I will put down my brick. I will walk the path, one step at a time. The master nods, then turns and walks away, his footsteps light on the stone path, leaving the disciple alone with his thoughts, with the brick, with the quiet beauty of the morning. The disciple takes a deep breath, feeling the air fill his lungs, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face, feeling the ground beneath his feet. For the first time in days, he is present, fully present in this moment. He does not pick up the brick again. Instead, he turns and walks toward the main hall where the other disciples are gathering for breakfast. He joins them, sitting quietly, listening to their conversation, savoring the taste of the simple meal rice, vegetables, a cup of tea. He does not think about the future, about enlightenment, about mirrors or bricks. He simply is, in this moment, fully and completely. Later that day, he finds a new task helping the older monks repair a section of the stone wall that has begun to crumble. As he lays the bricks in place, one by one, using them for their intended purpose, he feels a sense of peace, of purpose that he has never felt while grinding that single brick. He realizes that the master was right. Enlightenment is not in some distant future, but in the work of the present moment, in the act of doing what is in front of you, with full attention, with an open heart. And as the sun sets, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the disciple stands back to admire the repaired wall, his hands calloused, but his heart light. He knows that his journey is long, that there will be moments when he forgets this lesson, when he is tempted to chase shortcuts, to grind bricks into mirrors. But for now, he is content to walk the path, one step at a time, one breath at a time, trusting that the destination will reveal itself, not in some distant future, but in the beauty and sacredness of the present moment. The afternoon sun hangs low in the sky, casting long, lazy shadows across the temple courtyard. A young monk sits cross-legged on the cool stone floor near the entrance, his back straight, his hands resting gently on his knees. His eyes are closed, but his brow is furrowed, as if even in his attempt to meditate, his mind is restless, churning with questions that have no easy answers. Before him, just beyond the wooden gate, stands an old cypress tree. Its trunk is thick and gnarled, marked with the scars of decades of wind and rain, of harsh winters and scorching summers. Its branches stretch outward in all directions, some reaching toward the sky, others bending low toward the ground, as if embracing the earth. Its leaves are a deep, rich green, even in the late afternoon light, a testament to its resilience, its ability to thrive in spite of, or perhaps because of, the passage of time that the young monk has been sitting here for hours, ever since the midday. Kneel. He has come to this spot because it is quiet, because the presence of the old tree brings him a measure of peace. But today, even the tree's silent strength is not enough to calm his mind. He is troubled by a question that has been haunting him for weeks, a question that he has asked his fellow monks, that he has pondered late into the night, that he has searched for in the pages of the ancient sutras, but for which he can find no satisfactory answer. Where is the way? Where is that elusive truth, that ultimate reality that the masters speak of? Is it in the heavens, in the depths of the earth, in the pages of sacred texts? Or is it something that exists only in the minds of those who seek it? He opens his eyes, staring at the cypress tree as if it might hold the answer. He has heard the older monks speak of the way as something vast and mysterious, something beyond words, beyond comprehension. They speak of it in terms of mountains and rivers, of the sun and moon, of the cycles of life and death. But to the young monk, these words feel hollow, abstract. He wants something concrete, something he can see, something he can touch, something he can hold on to. He wants to know exactly where the way is, so that he can seek it, so that he can find it, so that he can grasp it once and for all. A soft rustling sound behind him makes him turn. The master walks slowly through the courtyard, his steps light on the stone path, his hands tucked into the sleeves of his robes. He pauses when he sees the young monk, his eyes warm with curiosity, as if he can sense the turmoil in the younger man's mind. "What are you doing here?" The master asks, his voice gentle, not intrusive. The young monk bows his head respectfully, then looks up, his eyes filled with a mixture of frustration and longing. "I am trying to find the way, master," he says. "I have been searching for it everywhere, in the sutras, in meditation, in the teachings of the elders, but I cannot find it. I do not even know where to look. Can you tell me, please, where is the way? Where is that ultimate truth that we are all seeking?" The master looks at him for a long moment, his gaze steady, his expression unreadable. Then he turns his eyes to the cypress tree that stands just beyond the gate, its branches swaying gently in the afternoon breeze. "Look at that cypress tree," he says simply. The young monk follows the master's gaze, staring at the tree. He looks at its thick trunk, at its gnarled branches, at its deep green leaves. He sees the way the sunlight filters through the foliage, casting dappled patterns on the ground. He sees the way a small bird has built its nest in one of the lower branches, its head poking out, watching the world below. He has seen this tree 100 times, 1,000 times, but he has never thought of it as being related to the way. "See it, master," he says, confusion in his voice. "But what does the cypress tree have to do with the way? Is the way in the tree? In its leaves? In its roots?" The master smiles softly, a gentle curve of his lips that seems to hold a lifetime of wisdom. The way is not in the tree, he says, nor is it outside the tree. The way is the tree, and the tree is the way. The way is the bird in its branches, and the wind that stirs its leaves, and the soil that nourishes its roots. The way is you, sitting here, asking your question. The way is me, standing here, answering. You. The way is everything, and it is nothing. It is present in all things, and yet transcends all things. The young monk frowns, struggling to understand. But that is not helpful, master, he says, his voice rising slightly with frustration. I want to know where the way is. I want to point to it and say, there it is. I want to find it, to grasp it, to make it my own. How can it be both everything and nothing? How can it be present in all things and yet transcend them? That does not make sense. The master's smile widens, but there is no mockery in it, only understanding. You are trying to use your mind to understand what cannot be understood, he says. You are trying to trap the wind in a net, to put the ocean in a bowl. The way is not something that can be grasped by the intellect, my friend. It is not a thing to be found, a place to be reached, a goal to be achieved. It is the very fabric of existence, the ground of all being, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the earth we walk upon. He takes a step closer to the young monk, his eyes never leaving the cypress tree. You see this tree every day, he says. You walk past it on your way to the dining hall, on your way to the meditation hall, on your way to your chores. But have you ever really seen it? Have you ever stopped to truly look at it, to appreciate it for what it is, in all its simplicity, in all its complexity? The tree does not question its existence. It does not wonder where the way is. It simply is rooted in the earth, reaching for the sky, growing, changing, living, being. In its very being, it embodies the way. The young monk stares at the tree, trying to see it as the master does. He tries to put aside his questions, his doubts, his desire to understand, and simply be with the tree, to let it speak to him in its own silent way. He notices the way the bark is rough and textured, with deep grooves that tell the story of its long life. He notices the way the leaves are arranged, each one unique, yet part of a larger whole. He notices the way the tree bends in the wind, yielding but not breaking, flexible yet strong. And in that moment, something shifts. It is not a sudden realization, not a flash of insight, but a soft, quiet opening in his mind, a letting go of his need to understand, to grasp, to control. He begins to see that the master is right, that the way is not something separate from the tree, but is the tree itself, in all its ordinary, extraordinary existence. It is the tree growing, the tree changing, the tree simply being without effort, without struggle, without question. The way is not in some distant place. My friend, the master says, as if sensing the young monk's shift in awareness. It is not in the past or the future. It is here, now, in this moment, in this place, in this tree, in you. It is in the simple, ordinary things of life, the way the sun rises in the morning, the way the rain falls on the roof, the way we breathe in and out, the way we sit here together, talking. We do not need to search for it, because we are already living in it, already part of it, already embodying it, whether we realize it or not. The young monk thinks of all the hours he has spent searching for the way, poring over ancient texts, sitting in long meditation sessions, asking endless questions, when all along it has been right in front of him, as close as his own breath, as familiar as the cypress tree in the courtyard. He has been like a man who travels the world in search of water, only to find that he has been carrying a jug of it with him all along. But why can I not see it then? He asks, his voice, soft now, humbled. Why is it so hard to recognize? Because you are looking for something complicated, When it is simple, the master replies, because you are looking for something extraordinary when it is ordinary. Because you are looking for something outside yourself when it is within. You, as close as your own heartbeat. The mind likes to complicate things, to create problems where there are none, to search for answers where there are no questions. But the way is beyond the mind, beyond concepts, beyond words. It can only be experienced, not understood. He reaches out and touches the young monk's shoulder gently, a gesture of encouragement, of connection. Stop searching and start. Seeing, he says, see the way in the cypress tree. See it in the stone beneath your feet. See it in the breath that fills your lungs. See it in the faces of your fellow monks. See it in the moments of joy and sorrow, of ease and difficulty, of clarity and confusion. The way is not something to be found in the future, but something to be lived in the present, with an open heart, with a clear mind, with a sense of wonder and gratitude for the simple miracle of existence. The sun dips lower in the sky, painting. The clouds in vibrant shades of orange and pink. The cypress tree stands silhouetted against the sunset, its branches outlined in gold, as if on fire with a light that comes from within. A gentle breeze stirs, carrying the scent of incense from the main hall, where the evening service is about to begin. The young monk closes his eyes, taking a deep breath, letting the master's words settle into his heart. He feels a sense of peace, a sense of clarity that he has not felt in weeks. He realizes that he has been making the way into something complicated, something distant, something unattainable, when in reality, it is the simplest thing of all the very life he is living, the very world he is part of, the very present moment that is always here, waiting to be noticed, to be appreciated, to be lived. He opens his eyes again, looking at the cypress tree with new eyes. It is no longer just a tree, but a manifestation of the way, a reminder of the truth that is present in all things. He sees its beauty, its strength, its simplicity, its perfection, just as it is, without needing to be anything else. And in that seeing, he begins to see himself in the same way, not as someone who is lacking, who is searching, who is incomplete, but as someone who is already part of the way, already embodying the truth, already perfect, just as he is. Thank you, Master, he says, his voice filled with gratitude. I think I understand now. The way is not somewhere else. It is here, in this moment, in this tree, in me. I do not need to search for it. I just need to see it. The master nods, his smile warm, his eyes filled with approval. That is the beginning of wisdom, he says. But remember, seeing is not a one-time thing. It is a practice, a moment-by-moment choice to be present, to be aware, to be awake to the miracle of life as it unfolds. There will be days when you forget, when your mind becomes clouded, when you start searching again. But each time you remember, each time you open your eyes and see the way in the ordinary things around you, you take another step along the path, not toward the way, but into it, into the fullness of life that has been waiting for you all along. The master turns and walks toward the main hall, his steps slow and deliberate, as if each step is a meditation, a celebration of the present moment. The young monk watches him go, then turns back to the cypress tree, which now stands in the yamku. Fading light, a silent teacher, a constant reminder of the truth that is always present. If only we have the eyes to see it. He sits there for a while longer, watching the tree, watching the sunset, watching the world go about its business, without the need to do anything, without the need to be anywhere else, without the need to be anyone else. He is simply present, simply aware, simply alive, and in that simplicity, he finds the way that has been with him all along, the way that is him, the way that is everything as the evening darkens and the first stars begin to twinkle. In the sky, the young monk stands slowly, his body relaxed, his mind calm, his heart open. He walks toward the main hall, but his steps are different, now lighter, more deliberate, more present. He passes the cypress tree, and for a moment, he reaches out and touches its rough bark, feeling a connection, a kinship with this ancient being that has taught him such an important lesson. He knows that his journey is not over, that there will be moments of doubt, moments of forgetting, moments of searching. But he also knows that the way is always here, waiting for him to see it again, in the next moment, in the next breath, in the next ordinary, extraordinary thing that catches his eye. And for now, that is enough. The night is clear, the sky a deep, inky blue, stretched taut over the world, dotted with stars that twinkle like scattered diamonds. A narrow path winds through the forest, its surface packed hard by the feet of countless travelers, bordered by tall trees whose branches interlock overhead, creating a canopy that blocks out all but the brightest of the stars. The air is cool, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, and the only sounds are the soft rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze, and the distant hoot of an owl. A traveler walks along this path, his boots crunching softly on the small stones that litter the way. He carries a small pack slung over one shoulder, its contents minimal some dried food, a flask of water, a blanket, a few simple tools. He has been traveling for many days, making his way to a distant village where he hopes to find work, to rest, to perhaps settle for a while. But tonight, he is tired, his legs heavy with fatigue, his eyes stinging from the strain of keeping watch on the path in the dim light dot as he rounds a bend in the path. He comes upon a small pond, its surface smooth as glass, reflecting the night sky above with perfect clarity. In the center of that reflection, bright and full and impossibly clear, is the moon. Not a pale, distant orb, but a glowing golden sphere, seemingly close enough to touch, its light shimmering on the water's surface, creating ripples of silver that dance and shift as the breeze stirs the pond dot. The traveler stops short, his breath catching in his throat. He has never seen anything so beautiful, so captivating. The moon in the sky is pale and far away, but this moon is vibrant, tangible, as if it has descended from the heavens and taken up residence in the pond. He finds himself drawn toward it, stepping off the path, his boots sinking into the soft mud at the pond's edge. He reaches out a hand, as if to touch the reflection, but as his fingers approach the water's surface, the image shatters, breaking into 1,000 tiny pieces, each one shimmering and dancing before reforming into the perfect circle of the moon as the water stills. He pulls his hand back, startled, then smiles to himself, a sense of wonder filling his heart. But as he stands there, watching the moon in the water, a thought begins to form in his mind, a thought that starts as a whisper, then grows louder, more insistent. What if this is not just a reflection? What if this is the real moon, somehow fallen from the sky, trapped in the pond? What if he could reach it, grasp it, possess it? With the moon in his possession, he would want for nothing. Its light would guide him through the darkest nights. Its beauty would bring him endless joy. Its power, who knows what power it might hold? The idea takes hold of him, wrapping itself around his mind like a vine, growing stronger with each passing moment. He kneels at the pond's edge, staring intently at the moon's reflection, trying to find a way to reach it. He plunges his hands into the water, but all he catches is a handful of cold liquid, the moon slipping through his fingers like smoke. He splashes at the surface, hoping to somehow capture the reflection, but each time he does, the image breaks apart, only to reform again once the water settles, mocking him with its unattainable beauty. He becomes more and more frustrated, his movements growing more desperate. He strips off his boots and wades into the pond, the cold water soaking through his trousers, chilling him to the bone. but he barely notices. All his attention is focused on the moon, on that perfect, glowing sphere that seems to taunt him, to stay just beyond his reach, no matter how hard he tries. He dives forward, his hands outstretched, but he comes up empty, sputtering, water streaming from his hair and clothes. The moon remains, unperturbed, floating serenely on the water's surface, as if laughing at his efforts. A soft voice behind him makes him jump, nearly losing his balance in the pond. He turns to see an old man standing on the path, leaning on a wooden staff, watching him with eyes that are wise and calm, as if he has seen this scene 100 times before. "What are you doing?" the old man asks, his voice gentle, not judgmental. Traveler is embarrassed, suddenly aware of how foolish he must look soaking wet, standing in a pond in the middle of the night, chasing a reflection. But the desire for the moon is still strong in him, overriding his embarrassment. "I am trying to catch the moon," he says, gesturing toward the water. "It has fallen into the pond, and I want to take it with me. Can you help me? Do you know how to reach it?" The old man looks out at the pond, at the moon's reflection shimmering on the water, then up at the sky, where the real moon hangs high above, pale and distant, but undeniably real. He turns back to the traveler, his eyes filled with a mixture of compassion and amusement. "The moon is not in the water," he says simply. "It is in the sky, where it has always been, where it will always be. What you see in the pond is but a reflection, a shadow, an illusion, nothing more." The traveler frowns, not wanting to believe the old man's words. "But it looks so real," he says, pointing to the reflection. "So bright, so close. It cannot be an illusion. I can see it clearly. I can almost touch it." "Your eyes can deceive you," the old man replies. "They show you what is on the surface, but not what lies beneath. They show you the reflection, but not the reality. Just because something looks real does not mean it is. Just because something is desirable does not mean it is worth pursuing." He takes a step closer to the pond, his staff tapping softly on the ground. "Have you spent your life chasing such phantoms?" he asks. "Money that slips through your fingers, fame that fades like the morning mist, pleasures that leave you empty, possessions that break or are lost? All reflections, all illusions, all shadows of something that you think will make you happy, but that never truly satisfy." The traveler thinks about this, his frustration beginning to fade, replaced by a sense of confusion, of doubt. He thinks of the many things he has chased in his life: wealth, status, the approval of others. He has worked hard, sacrificed much, only to find that each time he grasped what he thought he wanted, it slipped away, leaving him feeling empty, wanting more. Like the moon in the pond, these things had seemed so real, so desirable, so capable of bringing him happiness. But in the end, they were just reflections, empty and fleeting. "But if the moon in the water is not real," he asks, his voice soft now, "then why does it look so real? Why does it call to me so strongly?" "Because your heart desires it to be real," the old man says. "Because you are tired and lonely and searching for something to give meaning to your journey. The mind loves illusions, for they give it something to chase, something to strive for. They make life seem purposeful, even when that purpose is nothing but a shadow." He gestures to the traveler to come out of the pond, and reluctantly the traveler obeys, wading back to the shore, shivering now in the cool night air. The old man takes a blanket from his own pack and offers it to him, and the traveler wraps it around his shoulders, grateful for the warmth. "Sit down and look at the moon," the old man says, taking a seat on a nearby rock, not the reflection, but the real moon, high in the sky. "Look at it and see it for what it is, not something to be possessed, but something to be appreciated. not something to be chased, but something to be admired from afar. The traveler sits down on the ground, pulling the blanket tighter around himself. He looks up at the sky, at the moon hanging there, pale and distant, but somehow more real than the reflection in the pond. He notices how its light filters through the trees, casting dappled patterns on the ground. He notices how it illuminates the path ahead, showing him the way without needing to be possessed. He notices how it has been there every night of his journey, guiding him, comforting him, without his ever realizing it. And as he watches it, he begins to understand. The moon in the sky is like the true treasures of life, peace, love, happiness, wisdom. They are not things to be possessed, to be grasped, to be kept for oneself. They are like the moon's light-free, abundant, available to all, but only if we are willing to look up, to see them for what they are, to appreciate them without trying to own them. The reflection in the pond is like the illusions we chase, the idea that happiness comes from money, or status, or possessions. These things are not inherently bad, but when we mistake them for the real thing, when we believe that possessing them will bring us lasting happiness, we are chasing a reflection, diving into a pond in the middle of the night, getting soaking, wet and cold, for something that can never truly satisfy. You see, the moon does not need to be caught to give you light, the old man says, as if reading the traveler's thoughts. It shines whether you possess it or not. So it is with the good things in life. They are available to you now, in this moment, if you stop chasing their reflections and start looking up at the real thing. The traveler thinks of the people he has met on his journey, the kind stranger who offered him a meal when he was hungry, the child who shared a laugh with him by the side of the road, the old woman who told him stories by her fire. These moments of connection, of kindness, of joy, these were the real things, the moon in the sky. But he had often overlooked them, too busy chasing the next thing, the next goal, the next reflection in the pond. He looks back at the pond, at the moon's reflection still shimmering on the water. It is still beautiful, still captivating, but he sees it differently now. He sees it for what it is, a reflection, an illusion, a reminder of the real beauty that lies above. He no longer feels the desire to chase it, to possess it. Instead, he feels a sense of peace, a sense of clarity, a sense of gratitude for the old man who had helped him see the truth. "Thank you," he says, turning to the old man. "I have been chasing reflections for so long that I forgot to look up at the real moon. I have been so busy trying to possess happiness that I forgot to appreciate the moments of joy that are already here." The old man nods, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "It is an easy mistake to make," he says. "The world is full of reflections, of illusions that seem so real, so desirable. But once you learn to see them for what they are, you can stop chasing them and start living. You can walk the path with your eyes open, appreciating the beauty that is all around you, without needing to possess it, without needing to control it." The traveler stands, feeling lighter somehow, even with his wet clothes and tired body. He rolls up the blanket and hands it back to the old man, who accepts it with a nod of thanks. "I should be on my way," he says. "The village is still a few hours ahead, and I want to reach it before dawn." The old man stands as well, leaning on his staff. "Then go," he says. "But remember what you have learned tonight. When you see a reflection that calls to you, when you feel the desire to chase something that seems just out of reach, stop, look up, look around. The real thing is probably closer than you think, shining down on you, waiting to be seen, waiting to be appreciated." The traveler nods, then turns and walks back to the path, his steps lighter than before, his mind clearer. He does not look back at the pond, at the moon's reflection. Instead, he keeps his eyes on the path ahead, illuminated by the light of the real moon hanging high in the sky dot as he walks. He notices things he had missed before, the way the stars seem to guide him, the way the trees stand like silent guardians, the way the air smells fresh and clean, filling his lungs with each breath. He feels a sense of peace, a sense of presence that he has not felt in a long time. He is no longer chasing some distant goal, some illusion of happiness. He is simply walking, simply being, simply appreciating the journey for what it is. When he reaches the village at dawn, his clothes are dry, his body tired, but his spirit light. He finds work with a local farmer, helping to tend the fields, to harvest the crops, to care for the animals. He lives simply with few possessions, but he is happy. He wakes up each morning to the sound of the birds singing, works with his hands in the earth, shares meals with his neighbors, listens to their stories, tells his own, and sometimes, on clear nights, he walks to the edge of the village, where a small pond sits at the foot of a hill, and he looks up at the moon hanging high in the sky. And he smiles. He remembers the night he chased its reflection in the water, and he is grateful for the lesson he learned. He knows now that happiness is not something to be chased, to be possessed, to be kept. It is something to be experienced, to be appreciated, to be shared. It is like the moon's light, always there, always available, if only we take the time to look up and see it. The temple's morning bell echoes through the mist, its deep tone vibrating in the bones. In the practice hall, a young monk kneels before a low table, his brush hovering over a scroll of rice paper. He has been copying the Heart Sutra for 3 days, his posture rigid as a bamboo stalk, his breath held in tight control. The characters he paints are precise, each stroke measured to the hair's breadth, but there is a tension in his wrist, a flicker of frustration in his eyes that betrays his effort. Again, he mutters, crumpling the paper when a single stroke of the brush wavers. He casts it aside, where it joins a pile of discarded attempts in the corner, each one nearly perfect, each one rejected for a flaw no other eye would notice. The master enters silently, his sandals making no sound on the wooden floor. He pauses, behind the young monk, watching as the brush moves again, deliberate and forceful. The characters emerge like soldiers in formation, immaculate but lifeless. Are you painting characters or painting your heart? The master asks, not the young. Monk starts, smudging a character. He bows his head, cheeks flushing. I am striving for perfection, master. The sutra says form is emptiness, but emptiness must be expressed with perfect form, must it not? The master picks up one of the crumpled papers, smoothing it between his fingers. A bamboo bends in the wind, he says. Does that make it imperfect? A river curves around stones. Does that make its path flawed? Bamboo and rivers have no choice, the monk replies, grinding his ink stick with more force. But I have discipline. I can make the perfect line. The master sets the paper down. He reaches into the sleeve of his robe and draws out a small, sharp blade, a craftsman's tool used for trimming bamboo. The young monk's breath catches, but he does not look up, determined to show his focus. Outside, a sparrow crashes into the paper window, startling them both. The monk flinches, his brush skittering across the page. With a cry of anger, he raises his hand to crumple this latest failure dot. In that instant, the master moves. The blade flashes, and there is a sharp, stinging pain in the monk's left hand. He looks down to see his little finger lying on the table, severed cleanly at the knuckle. Blood wells from the stump, dripping onto the scroll, turning the blank. Paper crimson. The monk screams, clutching his hand. Why? He gasps, tears mixing with blood on his chin. What kind of teacher does this? The master places the blade on the table. He lifts the severed finger, holding it by the tip, as one might hold a brush. You wanted perfect form, he says, his voice steady as a mountain. Look at this finger. It is no longer part of your hand, yet it was once perfect in its purpose. Now it is only a thing. Does that make your hand imperfect? Or has it become something new? The monk stares at his bleeding hand, the pain a white-hot focus that burns away all other thoughts. He thinks of all the hours he has spent chasing perfection, scolding fellow monks for sloppy chores, refusing to eat meals that were not arranged symmetrically, even avoiding laughter for fear of wrinkling his brow. You clung to control, the master says, wiping the blade on his robe, like a man trying to hold water in a fist. The tighter you squeezed, the more you lost. This pain, this is the water slipping through your fingers. Feel it, but do not fight it. The monk's vision blurs. He watches his blood pool around the severed finger, and in that red mirror, he sees his own face contorted, desperate, small. I wanted to be better, he whispers. Better than what? The master asks. He dips his finger in the blood and draws a character on the wall. A simple emptiness, its strokes uneven, almost childlike. This character is made of blood and imperfection. Does that make its meaning any less true? A strange calm washes over the monk. The pain is still there, but it is separate from him now, something he observes rather than endures. He thinks of the bamboo in the wind, how its flexibility is its strength. He thinks of the river, how its curves carry it farther than any straight line could. The master binds the stump with a strip of linen, his touch gentle. You will learn to hold the brush differently now, he says. Your strokes will be wider, less precise, but they will have life. They will bend like bamboo, flow like water. He places the severed finger in a small wooden box and hands it to the monk. Bury this under the plum tree, he says. When spring comes, watch how the blossoms grow around it. They will not judge the earth for holding something broken. Weeks later, the monk sits in the same hall. His left hand rests on the table, the bandage gone, leaving a thick scar. With his right hand, he paints. His characters are wider now, their lines slightly uneven, but there is a warmth in them, a fluidity that was never there before. A novice peers over his shoulder. Master says your writing has become like music, she says. He says it breathes. The monk smiles, looking at the scar. It took losing a finger to learn how to hold the brush lightly, he says, to let the ink flow instead of forcing it. Outside, the plum tree blooms, its flowers pale pink against the sky. Somewhere beneath its roots, a severed finger nourishes the soil, forgotten, but not gone part of something larger now, something that bends and grows and flows, imperfect and beautiful. The winter wind cuts across the surface of the river, sharp as a blade, carrying with it tiny crystals of ice that sting the cheeks like pinpricks. The sky is a pale, washed-out blue, with a thin sun hanging low in the south, casting barely enough light to silver the water. Along the banks, the trees stand bare, their branches etched against the sky like skeletal fingers, their roots buried deep in frozen soil. The world feels stripped down, simplified, as if all non-essentials have been stripped away by the cold. And yet, in the middle of this barren landscape, there is a single figure. A man sits in a small wooden boat, anchored in the middle of the river, his posture calm and unmoving, as if he has been carved from the same ice that fringes the water's edge. He is an old man, his hair and beard white as the snow that dusts the banks, his face weathered by years of sun and wind and rain. But his eyes are clear and steady, fixed on the tip of his fishing rod, which jets out over the water, motionless. He wears a thick, padded coat, its color faded by time, and a fur-lined hat pulled low over his ears. But even so, the cold must seep into his bones, must make his fingers numb, must make each breath a visible cloud that hangs in the air for a moment, before dissolving. And yet, He shows no sign of discomfort. He does not shift his position, does not rub his hands together, does not stamp his feet to keep warm. He simply sits and waits and watches. A group of travelers passes along the riverbank, huddled together against the wind, their breath coming in short, sharp gasps. They are on their way to the next village, seeking shelter from the cold, from the harshness of winter. When they spot the old man in the boat, they stop, pointing, murmuring among themselves. What is he doing? One of them asks, his voice carried away by the wind. Does he not know how cold it is? There can be no fish in this weather. The river is almost frozen. Another shakes his head, pulling his cloak tighter around him. He must be a fool to sit out here in such conditions, wasting his time when he could be warm by a fire, eating hot food. What could possess him? They linger for a moment, watching. The old man, as if expecting him to react, to admit his foolishness, to row back to shore. But he does not. He remains as still as a statue, his gaze fixed on the water, as if the travelers do not exist, as if their words are nothing more than the howling of the wind. Finally, the travelers move on, their laughter fading as they disappear. Around a bend in the river, they forget the old man quickly, caught up in their own concerns, their own need for warmth and shelter. But for one of them, a young woman who has been walking silently at the back of the group, the image of the old man in his boat lingers. There is something about his stillness, his patience, his utter disregard for the cold and the wind and the opinions of others that stirs something within her, a sense of curiosity, a flicker of recognition, as if she is seeing something she has been searching for without even knowing it. Later that day, as the sun begins to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky in faint hues of pink and gold, the young woman finds herself drawn back to the river. She has told the others that she needs to collect some herbs, but in truth, she wants to see the old man again, to understand what drives him to sit alone in the freezing river, day after day, when all logic says he should be elsewhere. She approaches the bank quietly, not wanting to disturb him, and stands among the bare trees, watching. The wind has died down a little, and the world feels quieter, more still. The old man is in the same position as before, his fishing rod still extended over the water, his body relaxed but alert. There is no sign that he has caught anything, no fish in a basket, no movement in the water to suggest a bite. And yet, there is no frustration in his posture, no impatience in his demeanor. He seems perfectly content, as if simply being there. In that moment is enough. The young woman hesitates and calls out softly, her voice barely above the whisper of the wind. "Old man, may I ask you a question?" The old man turns his head slowly, his eyes meeting hers. There is no surprise in his gaze, as if he has known she was there all along. He nods slightly, a silent invitation to speak. "Why are you here?" she asks, gesturing to the river, to the cold, to the empty fishing line. "It is freezing, and there are no fish. Why not go to the village, where it is warm, where there is food and shelter? What are you hoping to catch?" The old man looks back at the water, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I am not fishing," he says, his voice rough but gentle, like the sound of water over stones. The young woman frowns, confused. "But you have a fishing rod. You are sitting in a boat in the middle of the river. What else could you be doing?" "I am fishing, but not for fish," he replies. "I am fishing for peace of mind. I am fishing for focus. I am fishing for the present moment." The young woman is silent for a moment, trying to understand his words. But why here, in this cold? Can you not find peace of mind by a warm fire? Can you not focus on the present moment in a comfortable room? The fire is warm, the room is comfortable, the old man says. But there are too many distractions there. Too many voices, too many demands, too many expectations. Here, there is only me, the river, the wind, and the sky. Nothing to distract me, nothing to shake my heart. Here, I must face myself, face the cold, face the silence, face the waiting. And in that facing, I find peace. He pauses, then adds, the cold is a test. It tests my focus, my patience, my resolve. When my body craves warmth, when my mind tells me this is foolish, when my hands begin to numb, I learn to persist. Not because I want to prove something, not because I expect fish, but because in persisting, I find a strength that is not swayed by the world around me. The young woman thinks about this, watching as the old man's breath forms a small cloud in the cold air. She thinks of her own life, of how easily she is swayed by the opinions of others, by the desire for comfort, by the fear of discomfort or hardship. She thinks of how she chases happiness, always looking for it in the next place, the next person, the next experience, never finding it because she is too busy running to notice the present moment. But it must be difficult, she says, to ignore the cold, to ignore the lack of fish, to ignore the voices in your head that say you should be doing something else. Difficulty exists, but it is not an enemy, the old man replies. It is a teacher. It teaches me to distinguish between what is necessary and what is desire. The cold is real, but my attachment to warmth is the source of suffering. The absence of fish is real, but my disappointment is of my own making. He turns to her again, his eyes wise and gentle. Life is full of cold winds and empty-handed days. People spend too much time complaining about the wind, lamenting the lack of fish, and forget the peace of sitting by the river. They let external conditions determine their inner state, rather than the other way around. The sun dips lower, and the light fades, painting the river in shades of gray and purple. The old man begins to pack up his things, reeling in his empty fishing line. With slow, deliberate movements. He does not seem disappointed, does not seem to regret the day's efforts. He moves with a sense of calm purpose, as if the act of packing up is as meaningful as the act of fishing. Are you leaving? The young woman asks. Yes, the sun is nearly set, he says. It is time to go home, but I do not return empty-handed. I return with a peaceful heart, a clear mind, and a resolve that is not swayed by the world outside. He rows slowly toward the shore, the boat cutting through the cold water with soft, rhythmic sounds. When he reaches the bank, he steps out, pulling the boat onto the frozen ground with an effort that belies his age. He turns to the young woman, who is still standing among the trees, watching him. Remember, no matter how strong the wind, how cold the water, or whether there are fish or not, you can choose to remain peaceful within, he says. Not because conditions are good, but because your inner state does not depend on conditions. It is a practice, a choice made every day. The young woman nods, her mind filled with his words, with the image of him sitting alone in the boat, impervious to the cold, to the lack of fish, to the opinions of others. She understands now that he was not fishing for fish, but for something far more valuable, for the ability to remain centered, to stay true to himself, to find peace in the midst of discomfort and uncertainty. Thank you, she says. I think I understand something now. The old man smiles, a warm, genuine smile that crinkles the corners of his eyes. That is enough, he says. Sometimes a little understanding is enough to change everything. He picks up his fishing rod and begins to walk along the bank toward a small cottage that the young woman had not noticed before, nestled among the trees. His steps are slow but steady, his back straight, as if he carries the weight of the world lightly. As if the cold has not touched him at all. The young woman watches him go, then turns to look at the river, now dark and still in the fading light. She stands there for a long time, feeling the cold seep into her bones. But instead of shrinking from it, she embraces it, letting it teach her, letting it remind her of the old man's words. She thinks of how she will face the challenges in her life differently. Now, not by running from discomfort, not by seeking constant ease, but by standing firm, by remaining centered, by finding peace in the midst of whatever comes as she walks. Back to the village, the stars begin to come out, pinpricks of light in the dark sky. She feels a sense of calm, a sense of strength that she has never felt before. She knows that the cold will still be cold, that hardship will still be hard, that there will be days when she feels like giving up. But she also knows that she has a choice, that she can be like the old man in his boat, unshaken by the wind, unperturbed by the absence of fish, rooted in her own inner peace, no matter what the world around her may bring. And in that knowledge, she finds a freedom, a resilience, a quiet strength that will stay with her long after the winter has passed, long after the river has thawed, long after the memory of the old man's face has faded. For she has learned that the most important catch is not the fish, but the ability to remain true to oneself, to stay centered in the storm, to find peace in the midst of life's coldest winters. The autumn sun slants through the wooden beams of the small temple room, casting warm, golden streaks across the straw mat where the old monk lies. The air is filled with the scent of chrysanthemum tea, brewed fresh that morning, and now growing cool in a clay cup on the low table beside him. Outside, the wind stirs the leaves of the ancient maple tree in the courtyard, sending a shower of red and gold fluttering to the ground, a soft rustling sound that mixes with the monk's slow, shallow breaths. He has been ill for some time, his body growing weaker with each passing day, but his eyes remain clear, his mind sharp, as if his spirit is already preparing to slip free of its physical form. A young disciple sits beside him, her posture respectful but relaxed, her hands resting gently in her lap. She has been with him for many years, learning his teachings, tending to his needs, and now keeping watch over his final days. "Look, outside," the old monk says, his voice thin but steady, like a thread of spider silk stretched across a quiet room. The young disciple turns her gaze to the window, where the maple leaves continue to fall, swirling in the breeze before settling on the ground. "I see them, Master," she says. "The leaves are falling. Autumn is here." "They are not falling," the old monk replies, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "They are returning to where they came from." The disciple looks at him, curiosity in her eyes. "To the ground, Master?" "Yes, but not just the ground," he says. "To the soil that nourished them, to the roots that gave them life. In spring, they push forth from the branches, green and full of promise. In summer, they are lush and strong, sheltering us from the sun. In autumn, they release, they let go, they return. It is not an end, but part of a cycle." He pauses, taking a slow, labored breath, his chest rising and falling with effort. The disciple reaches out, adjusting the thin blanket that covers him, but he shakes his head gently, indicating that he does not need it. "I am like these leaves," he says, his voice growing even softer. "My life once burst forth like a spring bud. It once flourished like a summer leaf. Now it is my time to return." The disciple feels a lump form in her throat, tears springing to her eyes. "Do not speak of returning, Master," she says, her voice trembling. "You are still here, still with us. Your teachings, your wisdom, they are not like leaves. They will not fade." The old monk's smile widens, a look of deep compassion in his eyes. "My teachings are like the tree's shadow," he says. "They follow the tree, but they are not the tree itself. One day, the shadow will fade, but the tree remains. What matters is not the leaf, not the shadow, but the cycle itself, the natural way of returning." He turns his head slightly, looking out the window again at the falling leaves. People fear returning because they misunderstand it. They think it is a loss, an ending. But it is not an ending, any more than the leaf falling to the ground is an ending. It is a transformation, a return to source, a reconnection with that which gave us life. The disciple thinks of all the times she has feared loss, the death of her parents when she was young, the departure of fellow disciples who left the temple to return to the world, the passing of seasons that seemed to take beauty away with them. She has always seen these things as endings, as losses, as reasons for grief. But the old monk sees them differently, as part of a larger pattern, a natural flow of life that includes both growth and decay, presence and absence, holding on and letting go. Do you remember the day I took you to the mountain behind the temple? The old monk asks, his eyes distant now, as if seeing a memory. We saw that fallen tree, its trunk rotting away, but from its center, a new sapling was growing. The disciple nods, the memory clear in her mind. I remember, Master. You said it was a lesson in impermanence. Not just impermanence, he says, but about continuity, about how life continues through what seems like endings. That great tree fell, but it did not disappear. It became soil to nourish new life, a frame to support the new sapling. Like these leaves, like me. A particularly large maple leaf drifts past the window, its color a vibrant red, almost fiery in the autumn sun. The old monk's eyes follow it as it falls, a look of peace on his face. I have spent my life teaching others not to fear death, he says. But only now do I truly understand why. Death is not an enemy, not a destination. It is a path home, a return to the source we never truly left. His breathing grows more shallow, his eyes beginning to flutter. The disciple leans closer, her heart breaking, but also filled with a strange sense of peace, as if she is witnessing something sacred, something natural, something that should not be feared. Watch the leaves, he whispers, his voice barely audible. Watch how they fall, how they return, how they rest. This is our way, simple, natural, without struggle. He takes one last deep breath, then his body relaxes, his eyes closing for the final time. Outside, a gentle gust of wind sends a flurry of leaves swirling past the window, as if welcoming him, as if carrying him home. The disciple sits there for a long time, watching the leaves fall, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face, listening to the quiet sounds of the temple around her, the distant chanting of monks in the main hall, the soft clatter of a broom as someone sweeps the courtyard, the rustle of more leaves falling to the ground. She does not feel the sharp pain of grief she expected, but rather a sense of calm, of acceptance, of understanding. She understands now that the old monk was right, that death is not an ending, but a return. Just as the leaves fall to nourish the tree, just as the fallen tree gives life to the sapling, so too do we return to the source, to the ground of all being, to be reborn in ways we cannot imagine. It is not a loss, but a transformation, a continuation of the great cycle of life that connects all things. Later that day, as the sun begins to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, the disciple walks to the maple tree in the courtyard. She stands beneath its branches, watching as the last of the day's leaves fall, covering the ground in a thick, colorful carpet. She bends down, picking up a single red leaf, feeling its texture between her fingers. The thin veins, the slightly waxy surface, the edges beginning to curl with age. She thinks of the old monk, of his wisdom, of his peace in the face of death. She thinks of his life, the teachings he shared, the lives he touched, the love he gave freely. Like the tree, he had flourished, giving shade and shelter to those around him. Now, like the leaves, he had returned, but his presence would continue to nourish, to guide, to give life in ways she could not yet see. She places the leaf back on the ground, letting it join the others, letting it return to the soil. Thank you, she whispers, to the leaf, to the tree, to the old monk who had taught her so much. Thank you for showing me the way home. As she walks back to her cell, she feels a sense of lightness, a sense of connection to something larger than herself, to the tree, to the leaves, to the earth, to all those who have come before and all those who will come after. She knows that one day she too will be like the leaves, like the old monk, returning to the source. But she no longer fears that day, for she understands that it is not an ending, but a homecoming, a return to the place where we all begin and end, and begin again. And in that understanding, she finds peace, a peace that will stay with her, guiding her, comforting her, reminding her of the beauty and wisdom of the natural way, of the simple truth that all things return to their roots, and in returning, find their true home. The mountain path winds upward, its surface rough with loose stones and gnarled tree roots that reach out like gnarled fingers, as if trying to hold onto the earth. The air grows thinner as the path climbs, carrying the crisp, clean scent of pine and the faint, metallic tang of minerals from the rocks. Sunlight filters through the dense canopy of leaves above, casting dappled patterns on the ground, where ferns and wildflowers grow in the sheltered spots between the trees. A traveler walks slowly along this path, his boots crunching on the stones, his breath coming in deeper, steadier rhythms as he ascends. He is a young man with a backpack slung over his shoulders. Its contents light a few days' worth of food, a canteen, a small tent, a book of poems. He is not traveling for any particular reason, not heading to any specific destination. He is simply walking, letting his feet carry him where they will, seeking solace from the noise and busyness of the city he left behind. As he rounds a bend in the path, he hears a sound, a soft, persistent trickling that cuts through the silence of the forest like a melody played on a flute made of water. He pauses, listening, and follows the sound, stepping off the path and pushing his way through a thicket of bushes, their leaves brushing against his face, their thorns catching gently on his clothes. On the other side of the thicket, he finds himself in a small clearing. In the center, a large, flat rock juts out from the hillside, its surface smooth and polished, as if by centuries of wind and rain. And from a crack in the rock, a small spring gushes forth, a thin silver stream of water that tumbles over the edge of the rock, falling in a series of tiny waterfalls before pooling in a small, clear basin below, where it collects and then overflows, winding its way down the hillside, eventually disappearing into the forest. The traveler stands at the edge of the clearing, watching the water, transfixed. There is something mesmerizing about it, the way it flows so freely, so effortlessly over the rock, the way it adapts to the shape of the stone, never fighting, never resisting, simply finding the path of least resistance. He sits down on a fallen log at the edge of the clearing, his eyes fixed on the spring, his mind quieting as he watches the water dance over the rock. He thinks of his own life, of the struggles he has faced, the arguments with his father, who wanted him to follow in his footsteps and become a merchant, the disappointment of a failed love affair, which had left him feeling bitter and alone, the frustration of trying to make a living as a poet when the world seemed to value practical skills over words and dreams. In each of these situations, he had fought, argued, resisted, struggled against the current of life as if he could bend it to his will. And each time, he had felt beaten, exhausted, as if he were trying to push a boulder uphill, only to have it roll back down, crushing him in its wake. But the water, he notices, does not fight. It does not try to push the rock aside, does not rage against the obstacle in its path. It simply flows around it, over it, through it, adapting to the rock's shape, using the rock's own contours to create beauty, the way the water catches the sunlight as it tumbles over the edge. the way it creates small eddies and whirlpools. In the basin below, the way it sings as it moves. The rock is hard, unyielding, immovable. The water is soft, fluid, flexible. And yet, over time, it is the water that shapes the rock, not the other way around. The traveler can see the evidence of this in the smooth, polished surface of the stone, in the small grooves and channels that the water has carved into it over the years, like a sculptor working with infinite patience, using not force, but persistence. To create its art, softness overcomes hardness, he whispers to himself, recalling a line from a poem he had read once, its meaning now suddenly clear. Water wears away stone, not by force, but by persistence, by adaptation, by finding the path that is already there. He thinks of how he has approached his struggles with force, with resistance, with the belief that he must fight to get what he wants. But watching the water, he sees another way, a way of yielding without giving up, of adapting without losing oneself, of flowing through life's obstacles rather than trying to smash them down. The sun moves higher in the sky, and the traveler shifts his position, moving into the shade of a nearby tree to avoid its glare. He takes a sip from his canteen, then sets it down beside him, his attention returning to the spring. He watches as a leaf falls from a nearby tree, floating down to land on the surface of the water in the basin. Instead of fighting against the current, it simply rides it, spinning gently as it is carried toward the edge of the basin, then over, joining the stream that flows down the hillside. Is this not the way to live? The traveler thinks, not to fight against the current, but to ride it, not to resist the obstacles, but to flow around them, not to try to change the world, but to adapt to it, to find beauty in the way things are, rather than struggling against them. He thinks of his poetry, of how he has always tried to force words into patterns, into forms that felt unnatural, as if he were trying to shape water into a solid sculpture. But what if he let the words flow, like the water over the rock? What if he stopped trying to control them, and instead let them find their own path, their own shape, their own beauty? He takes out his book of poems and a small notebook and pen from his backpack. He opens the notebook to a blank page, but instead of trying to write, he simply sits, watching the water, letting its rhythm seep into his mind, into his bones. He feels a sense of peace, a sense of clarity that he has not felt in a long time, a sense that he is exactly where he is meant to be, doing exactly what he is meant to do in this moment, without hurry, without worry, without struggle. A while, he begins to write, his pen moving quickly across the page, the words flowing from him as freely as the water from the spring. He writes about the rock and the water, about the way softness overcomes hardness, about the beauty of adaptation, of yielding, of flowing. He writes not with effort, but with ease, as if the words have been waiting inside him, just waiting for the right moment to be released. When he finishes, he reads what he has written, a smile spreading across his face. It is not perfect, not in the way he once would have defined perfection, but it is honest, it is true, it is alive like the water, like the rock, like the forest around him. It is a poem that flows rather than fights, and in that flow, he finds a beauty he has never achieved before. As the afternoon wears on, the traveler packs up his things, carefully tucking his notebook and pen back into his backpack. He stands, stretching his legs, then walks over to the spring, kneeling down beside the basin to fill his canteen with the clear, cool water. He drinks deeply, savoring its freshness, its purity, its life-giving properties. Before he leaves, he turns to look at the rock and the spring once more, committing the image to memory, the way the water flows over the stone, the way the sunlight catches the droplets as they fall, the way the whole scene feels like a perfect metaphor for life itself. I will remember this, he says to himself. I will remember to flow, not fight, to yield, not resist. To adapt, not struggle. He turns and walks back through the thicket, rejoining the mountain path. But as he walks, his steps feel lighter, his mind clearer, his heart more open than before. He no longer feels the need to rush, to reach some distant destination. He is content to walk, to flow, to let the path carry him where it will not. And as he walks, he thinks of the spring, of the rock, of the water that wears away stone, not by force, but by persistence, by adaptation, by simply being itself. He knows that he will face obstacles again, that there will be times when he is tempted to fight, to resist, to struggle. But he also knows that he has a choice, that he can flow, like the water over the rock, finding his way through life's challenges with softness, with persistence, with grace. In the end, he realizes the greatest strength is not in force, but in flexibility, not in resistance, but in adaptation, not in fighting against the current, but in flowing with it. And in that realization, he finds a freedom, a peace, a way of being in the world that feels as natural, as right, as the water, flowing over the rock, a way of being that is soft yet strong, yielding yet persistent, free yet connected to all things. When the last fallen leaf returns to the root, when the spring on the stone finally merges into the river, these stories become lines etched in the heart unassuming, yet stirring gently at the first breath of wind. We once watched banana leaves, bearing the rain with the lay practitioner, understanding that flexibility outshines resistance. Followed the traveler chasing the moon's reflection in water, realizing illusions are but shadows of the mind. Witnessed the old monk teaching through severed finger, knowing letting go is where gain begins. All these koans speak the same truth. Life itself is the finest monastery, and every breath a practice. There's no need to cling to remembering any story, just as there's no need to detain the wind brushing the lake. Those revelations of letting go and shouldering on, of illusion and reality, of imperfection and wholeness, they've long since become wind chimes under the eaves, whispering softly in every ordinary day. The way resides in broken tiles, Zen lingers in tea smoke, and we are always walking home.